Welcome and or welcome back to my channel. I'm Hannah Blackwell and today I'm going to be bringing you my fantasy romance TBR. So as you guys know, fantasy romance is one of the biggest genres that I read. I think it takes up a lot of my reading, and I have realized that there are actually a lot of series that I'm in the middle of, and also, I already knew this, but there's a lot of series that I still want to pick up. So this list has been compiled of series that I know I want to continue. So the next book in the series that I know for sure I do want to continue on. And then series that I want to pick up. These are all fantasy romance specific. So if you see a paranormal series that you know that I have started and it's not on this list, that doesn't mean I don't want to continue it. I'm just making these books very specifically fantasy romance. So there's not going to be like paranormal romance or monster romance on this list. This is just going to be strictly fantasy romance and books I'm sure that I want to continue on the series or start the series. So I've got 7 books from series that I have already started and 5 books from series that I want to start. I also have not included in this list series that I'm in the middle of that the next book I have to read hasn't come out yet. So think like ACOTAR and Crescent City. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, I would love to have you do so. All of my social media is linked down below in the description, including my Goodreads, Instagram, and Twitter. Make sure to comment down below and let me know which book you think I should prioritize from this list, and maybe also what your favorite fantasy romance series is that you think I might want to pick up. Don't forget to click the like button, and with all of that out of the way, let's get into this video. So let's go ahead and just start with the 7 series that I know I want to continue on. So the first book continuation I would really like to pick up is A Touch of Stone and Snow by Mila Vane. I read the first book in the series, and I think the series is called A Gathering of Dragons, and I really enjoyed it. I'll be talking more in detail about that book in a coming video, but the second book in the series is A Touch of Stone and Snow. I believe this follows a different couple, but it's in the same world, and there is an overarching plot line that I think will probably be continued on. A dangerous evil that is coming and stirring that we know is going to cause a lot of destruction. And so I'm thinking I think that each book in the series does follow a different couple, but with that overarching plot line. Other than that, I don't know much about this book, other than it is like a medieval historical fantasy romance series that has some really good world building. And I really loved the first book. I thought the banter was right on. It was enemies to lovers done perfectly and to the extreme. And I want to continue. This was the perfect mix of historical and romance. Think Grace Draven or Juliet Marillier, but spicier. So probably fairly similar, I feel like, to Grace Draven, but with a higher fantasy level, more world building. So the next continuation sequel that I would like to pick up is Long Live the Elf Queen. This is by J.M. Curl. I really enjoyed the first book. I believe I gave it 4 stars. Now, I have actually already started this book. I'm about 100 pages in, and I keep picking it up and putting it back down, but I don't think that that's the book's fault. But I cannot figure out if it is the audiobook or that I need to reread the first book. I don't know. Number one, the audiobook's not great. It is got dual narration, but the problem is that the narrators are basically making a caricature of an English accent, and it's just not done well. It is very over dramatized in a very caricature-esque way. It's just not great. It's pretty bad, actually. But I also think that it's been a little bit too long since I read the first book. So I'm kind of in between. Should I finish Long Live the Elf Queen, or should I wait for her to finish the series and basically reread Bow Before the Elf Queen and then continue on and try to binge the series? I don't know where I'm going from here, but I do know I do want to continue on and eventually read Long Live the Elf Queen. This is a elven fantasy romance series that is, I would say, hate to love. Our heroine is destined to marry the prince, and she does not want to. She is in hiding. Her parents have been killed by the king, and she really hates the prince. And she spends her whole life training to kill the prince because she knows eventually he's gonna come for her. And when he does, she wants to be able to kill him. Unfortunately, when she does meet the prince and is taken away with him, she finds out a secret that basically means she can't kill him. We go from there. There are these like zombie-like beings, and I think that's pretty cool. There's elves. Our main character, our heroine, has this really cool earth magic where she weaves like vines, and I really like that magic. So I really, really like this series, and I like the world, and I like, there's like other characters too that I like. Yeah, I just have to figure out, do I need to reread it, or do I just need to be in a headspace where I don't need an audiobook to continue on? Right now, I'm very, very heavily leaning on audiobooks at the moment. So it's kind of hard for me. So yeah, we'll see. I'll figure out what to do, but I do want to continue. Okay, next we have Glow by Raven Kennedy. This is the 4th book in the Plated Prisoner series. This is a King Midas retelling where we have our heroine who has been gold touched by King Midas. She is made completely of gold. All but her whites of her eyes and her teeth are gold. And she is in this relationship. She basically has Stockholm Syndrome. She has been brainwashed by King Midas, and she's kind of happy living her life in a cage. And things don't stay like that for long. Things kind of go crazy in this series, and our heroine has so much character growth. I love this series. The 3rd book ended on a cliffhanger, and I honestly don't know how I haven't picked up the 4th book, Glow. Mostly, I think it's just because I'm trying to wait. I was trying to wait until closer to the release of the 5th book because that is coming out in December, but I think I'm kind of at the halfway point now between having read the 3rd book and the 5th book's release. So I think I am going to be picking up Glow. I think I am going to be picking up Glow this month. So next we have Holin the Soulless by Denali Day. This is the 1st book in the series, but I did just recently read Sven the Collector, which is the novella in the series. The first like prequel novella, and I loved it. I loved Denali Day's writing style. These are like wyvern writers that are barbarians. It is Viking inspired. Oh my god, it is like very dark high fantasy with barbarians. If you like a barbarian hero, this is a good one, especially in the first book, the novella that I read. It was a really good enemies to lovers, and our heroine was really strong. And yeah, if this series continues on like that novella, which I gave 4.5 stars, I very rarely give novellas 4.5, 5 stars. I have very high hopes for the rest of the series. I think there's at least 4 or 5 books out, and I cannot wait to continue. It is not super spicy. It's like low on the spice scale, but it's just good. It's really good. Okay, another one I really need to continue on, and it's been a while for this one. This is the Fortuna's Torn series, so I need to read the 3rd book, Deadly Dreams. So I've read the first 2 books in this series. I think it was Fortuna Sworn and Restless Slumber. I really liked them. Restless Slumber ended on a heart-breaking, gut-wrenching cliffhanger. I honestly don't know how I haven't picked up Deadly Dreams, but I'm kind of scared. So this is about Fortuna Sworn. She is a nightmare, so she can kind of like touch someone and find out their worst nightmares, like what they are the most afraid of, and then cause them to experience that fear as if it were happening to them. She's a very, very powerful magical being. Now, one day she is approached by this king of the Unseelie Fae, and he tells her, I know where your brother is. Her brother has been missing for a good long while. She doesn't know where he is, but apparently this dude does. And he says, well, I will tell you where your brother is if you marry me. So we go from there, and she marries him and goes into the Unseelie Fae world, which is really cool because it kind of shows like what the portals are like, and like this underworld Unseelie world. And I like the world building a lot. She can go to she can go to the real world, but then cross into the Fae world too. So it's kind of like both, if that makes sense. So it's almost urban fantasy, but not quite. And yeah, I really like the series. Fortuna makes really bad decisions. She's constantly pissing you off. There is a love triangle in this book as well. I need to continue. I think I still remember the second book well enough to just continue on, but I really need to get to it soon here before I have to reread the first two books. Okay, so two more books that I want to continue the series. The first one is Midnight Bride by Katie Wilde. This is another series where each book follows a different couple. The first one that I read was Midwinter Mail Order Bride or Winter Mail Order Bride. I can't remember the name of it, but it was very good. These are like novella length, but I remember the first book I thought had a really good world building, and I also really enjoyed the messaging in it. It was basically this kind of moral of being nice and kindness being a magic of its own. And we also had a really good hate to love, enemy to lovers storyline. And the world was really cool too. So I do want to continue on, especially because I believe there is a new book coming out that is going to be the first full-length book in this series, and that's coming out soon. So it'd be nice to catch up to this series. I don't know anything about the next book in this series, but I'm hoping it's good. Finally, I really want to read That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human by Kimberly Lemming. I've read the first two books plus a novella in this series. Loved all of them. I think the first one I gave 4 stars and the next two I gave 5 stars. I actually just ordered a birthday gift for myself of every book in this series with their original covers because this has been picked up and it's kind of hard to get the covers now. I don't like the new covers. It's basically very similar to the old covers except for they've covered them in this giant lettering for the title so that you can't really see the picture well. It's just very poorly done, I think. I really wanted the original covers because though I would like to support the author and buy her new books, I just don't like those covers, and I'd rather support good covers so that we stop getting crappy covers in traditional publishing. Traditional publishing is really failing with their covers, and I'm kind of sick of it, and I just don't want to support a shitty cover. So I'm not going to, but I did splurge. I would say splurge for getting used copies of these books because I think that people are selling them for almost basically full price, some more than full price now because the original covers are kind of in demand at the moment. So anyway, I splurged. I got all of them. And so I would like to read this next one. This is a really, really cool series. It's basically set on the American Bayou, but make it magical and fantastical. And I really love it. The main characters, the heroines, are all really strong female main characters. And it's like a monster. So I know I said I wasn't going to include monster romances, but technically these are like a lot of paranormal and monsters, but there's also dragon shifters, and it kind of crosses borders. And the reason I consider this a fantasy romance is because of the world. The world building feels like it's a fantasy. It feels like a cozy fantasy. So because of the world she has created, even though some of the characters are more paranormal or monster, it's a fantasy world, so I do consider it a fantasy romance. Okay, so let's get into the new series that I'd like to pick up and start. So the first one is Danielle Jensen's The Bridge Kingdom. I believe there are 3 books out, maybe 4 in this series so far. I think it's going to be a series of 6 books, but it's going to be 3 duologies. So the first story, like the first love story, is already out. I believe the first 2 books follow the same couple, and then the next books 3 and 4 follow a couple, and then books 5 and 6 follow a couple. So I want to go ahead and start this because I do know I can at least go ahead and finish out one story arc, and I believe there is like an overarching plotline as well. This is basically a fantasy romance that has so many amazing reviews. I have so many friends that adore this series and recommend it to me all the time. This is set in a world where there's a lot of water, I believe, and there are these 2 kingdoms. There's the kingdom where our heroine is from, and there's this like bridge kingdom that controls this really important bridge that's really important for trade. Our heroine is trained from birth to marry the prince of the bridge kingdom and then I think assassinate him. The problem is that she goes ahead, marries him, and then she finds out some not so savory things about her own kingdom, possibly, or maybe her dad. I'm not sure, but she gets very conflicted, and the series goes from there. So she's supposed to kill this dude, but she's very conflicted about whether or not to, and then they start to fall in love. It sounds like a plot that I would really enjoy. It has a lot of tropes that I love in both historical romance and fantasy romance. So I think this could really be a good one for me. I don't think it's super spicy. I think it's more of like a 2-3 chili pepper kind of spice rating, but that's just fine for me in fantasy romance. Like, I don't need it to be super spicy. I just want it to be a really good balance of fantasy to romance. Okay, next is another one I can't stop hearing amazing things about, and that is Between Wrath and Mercy by Jess Weisskopf. This is a long one though. I own the audiobook for this and it's like 28 hours long. Super, super long. That's gonna take me a while. Anyway, this is pretty cool though, because the synopsis is that our heroine is an older heroine, which I don't see enough of in romance, or especially fantasy romance. We usually get heroines that are between the ages of 18 and 25, and they're usually closer to like 20, 21 or something like that. So I really appreciate an older heroine, and she is a mom as well. There's this prophecy about her daughter that she's really worried about coming to fruition, and when her daughter is kidnapped, she ends up having to seek the help of like an ex-flame who I believe is the king or the king of a neighboring kingdom or something like that, but she needs his help. So it's like, I think it is a second chance hate to love romance. You don't see that in fantasy romance either. You don't see second chance romances. At least I haven't ever seen a second chance romance in a fantasy romance. If you have, let me know. But I'm very intrigued by this. The cover is amazing. I adore the cover of this book too. So I'm very intrigued. I love lilacs. I love lilacs so much. I wish I could grow them here, but there's really not that many varieties you can grow in where we are. It's too hot. Anyway, I really would like to try this out. I like the synopsis, I like the tropes, and I like that it's taking a different approach on a fantasy romance. And I'm really wanting more books to do that. So I feel like it's kind of hypocritical for me not to have read this book yet, because I keep saying I want a different fantasy romance. So I need to read it. So this book I'm sure you've heard of if you've watched a lot of fantasy romance videos. And this is What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper Woods. I think the 4th book is coming out soon. And I think that it's supposed to be the last book in the series. I think the 3rd one was supposed to be the last book though, and then she extended it. So I think there's like a worry that she might extend the series to 5 books, but I think it should be 4 books, but we'll see. I hear a lot of great things about the series. I know my good friend Jess from Honest Fiction adores this series, so I'd like to pick it up. I think it has ACOTAR vibes where there's like fae on one side of a wall and humans on the other. I think there's these fae after our heroine because that's how that works in a fantasy romance, and craziness ensues. I'm getting the idea this is quite a formulaic plot, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, but the thing is I keep hearing good things about it, so I want to try it. I hear that it's fairly spicy too, and while I have heard mixed reviews, I've heard a lot of amazing reviews, so I think I'm going to go into it with like mid expectations and just for a fun time, but I will say I want to binge this series because I think that'd do better for me. I want to binge the series. And I do have the audiobooks. The audiobooks are actually free on Audible if you have an Audible Plus subscription. So that's another plus. I talked about this book in my July TBR, and that's Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha Tooley, and I think this is going to be a fun book to read in the summertime. I hope I get to it this month. Like I said, I'm having issues right now with reading books and not having audiobooks to go along with them, but I would like to. I really would like to. And this, from what it says in the synopsis, is The Bachelor Meets the Hunger Games. Sign me up. I hope that is right. Sometimes I feel like publishers just put shit like that in there, and to market a book, but it has nothing to do with the book. So The Bachelor Meets Hunger Games sounds really cool, and it looks like our heroine signs up for this competition to, I guess, try to marry the prince or the king or whoever. And it sounds like a competition is quite dangerous. We may have some cat fights. I don't know. This should be a good time. I have high hopes. Finally, I have To Bleed a Crystal Bloom by Sarah Parker. This is going to be the August book pick for my new fantasy romance book club, which is called Spelled by Romance. I have some guest hosts for our live reading sprints. I'm going to have Tori from Tori Between Pages and Maggie from Maggie's Books and Stuff reading along with me. I can't remember the exact day of our live reading sprints. I think it's in mid-August, but I'm going to have the information down below so that you know, you can mark your calendars. But we're all going to start this book together at the same time and be reading it live and have spoilery discussions in our Discord, The Hideaway. So make sure to show up if you want to read this, read along with us, or you can come to the sprints. You don't have to be reading this book, but it's going to be a good time. I'm excited for it. It's actually a Rapunzel retelling, which really intrigues me. I don't see enough of those. I actually have a couple of Rapunzel retellings on my TBR just because that really intrigues me, and I really like Tangled. So Rapunzel retelling, we have our heroine who is locked up away with this dude who pricks her once daily to take a drop of blood. And she doesn't know why. That's all I know. That's really all I know. That, and like I said, my friend Jess from Honest Fiction really likes this book and likes this series. And I really like the fan art for it too. So I am hoping I will enjoy it. So that's it. Those are the books I wanted to talk about today. These are more, like I said, the immediate TBRs, the books I know I want to continue on in the series soon, and some fantasy romance series that I really would like to pick up soon as well. Obviously, my fantasy romance TBR is much larger than this. If you want to see some of the books on there, go ahead and check out my Goodreads. I do have like shelves on there, so I do have a fantasy romance TBR on there. So check that out. I think it says like Monster Alien Fantasy TBR or something like that, but that contains like all of my speculative TBR, my speculative romance TBR. So check that out. That's linked down below, along with my Instagram and Twitter, and the Hideaway Discord that I run with my good friend Maggie from Maggie's Books and Stuff. Don't forget to click the like button and comment down below and let me know which book from this list you think I should prioritize. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure you click that notification bell if you want to be notified every time I post new videos. Until next time, fellow readers, keep reading and living your best life.
Never said you felt that way. Guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away.